Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches. And today I'm going to be talking about Puppet Master 1 and 2 from 1989 and 1990 respectively. And the Puppet Master franchise is currently out at 14 films and counting. But I'll try and summarize the what has more or less remained true about the franchise. There's definitely some wrinkles to this, but basically, we started in 1939, where master puppeteer Andre Toulon has discovered an ancient mystic secret: how to give life to the unliving. Now, his decision to use this incredible power to make living puppets, particularly the kind of living puppets that he made, suggests he was a bit of an odd chap. But his subsequent decision to kill himself rather than allow the Nazis to capture his secret is definitely a tick in the win column for me. Anyone who hates Nazis, they're okay by me. But then the first film really kicks off, having established all this stuff, it really kicks off 50 years later when a group of psychics are each experiencing visions relating to their mutual acquaintance Neil Gallagher. Now, none of them particularly like Gallagher, but the fact that they're all having similar visions at a similar time merits investigation. So they seek out Gallagher, only to learn that he has killed himself in much the same manner as Toulon did. Now, surprise, surprise, Toulon's puppets soon make an appearance, and they seem to have become quite the murderous bunch. Maybe 50 years being hidden in a wall space has made them cranky. Or maybe something more sinister is afoot. Now, that's the plot of the first film. The plot of the second film starts with the murderous mannequins pouring some kind of goo into the freshly opened grave of their creator, Andre Toulon. But thereafter, for most of its runtime, it is pretty much the same basic film. A group of people turn up and 2-foot-tall puppets murder them. And that's why I'm reviewing the two of them together. They have a lot of similarity in the story that they're telling. But, what is there that's interesting to talk about with these two movies? Well, there's a few things. The first thing is kind of a more general, I guess, industry comment, though it definitely had a bearing on the creation and success of these films, which is the home video market. So when cinemas changed to a main feature only format, and you went to the movies to see one film and just one film, and they were no longer showing cartoons and B features. It definitely hurt the small end of the film industry. I mean, because if you didn't have big bank, you couldn't really get your stuff in theaters, and you therefore couldn't make any money. And it was the rise of home video that offered a solution to those movie producers. And Charles Band's Full Moon Productions was quick to capitalise on this new market. They churned out horror, science fiction and fantasy films, stuff that wasn't in theatres much at the time. Strange as it may seem today when we get lots of this stuff. But yeah, they churned out horror, science fiction and fantasy films to entice home viewers with an interest in those genres, because realistically, this was the only place you could see this stuff. And the promise of violence and potentially nudity likely also contributed to their popularity at a time when those things weren't seen on TV the way that they are today. Puppet Master was Full Moon's most successful franchise. They had a new film come out last year in 2020. There's another one currently in the works. And that may, to some extent, have come from the fact that the first film was originally conceived as a theatrical release and then switched to home video because they thought it would be more profitable that way. They were right. The first film was made on $400,000, which is a tiny amount of money even in 1989 to be making a film with quite a lot of effects work in it. And so it would not have looked good compared to what it would have been up against in the theatre, but on the small screen, it looks pretty darn good, actually. And the reason for that is smart spending. When you make a film about killer puppets, you're not exactly making high art, but you do want your murderous marionettes to look as good as possible. And that is where Full Moon really ticked the box, because the puppet effects in these first two films, which are all masterminded by David Allen, are generally really solid, especially given the age of the film. I mean, we're talking about a film that is now over 30 years old, and of course the budget of the film, $400,000. So yeah, really good work. The puppets move well, they look pretty convincing, and their designs, the designs themselves, are quite inventive and evocative. Blade, the white-faced fellow front and center in the image that you're looking at, is probably the most identifiable, with a clean but memorable design. That has seen him become the most prominently featured of the franchise's characters. In fact, the 2020 film that came out last year was a spin-off centered solely on him. Similarly, Full Moon, the writers and director have spent some thought and attention on the kill scenes, because they're a key attraction in high body count horror films like these. I mean, it's a core part of anything like Friday the 13th or these films where you're here to see people get killed, and so you want to see them get killed in inventive, interesting, novel ways. And they've done a pretty good job of that over these two films. They're not all as good as one another, but some of them work really well, and they're all kind of suitably ooky and kooky. And the fact that people are being killed by puppets contributes to that, because you're able to give the puppets, wacky ways of dealing with people. So Pinhead, who you can see in the back of the image there, the drill on top of his head is a drill, and he uses it in the kind of ways you might expect him to use it on people. There's Madam Leech, who uses leeches to kill people. So they've got these ooky kooky ways of killing people, which helps to make it quite memorable, because you've got a bunch of different puppets doing different things. Now, as noted earlier, Puppet Master 2 is largely a retread of the first film in terms of plot. People turn up at a hotel, and then the puppets murder them in various gleefully sadistic and or silly ways. Puppet Master 2 is generally a bit faster paced than the original, but there's definitely an air of rushed to market sequel to it. And I think that's pretty understandable, given that the success of the first film was probably significantly greater than expected. It did do really well on home video, and Full Moon wanted to strike while the iron was hot, and get a sequel out pretty quickly, which they did next year, in fact. But it's not exactly innovative and different. Now, that is potentially a workable formula, like just every year churn out the same basic movie, because renting a video wasn't that expensive, certainly a lot cheaper than going to the cinemas. And so it probably would have been a workable formula to stick with that and drop out a film where puppets make some fresh kills and another attractive woman takes off a top, count your cash. Easy peasy, right? And they could have done that. And for PM2, Puppet Master 2, they mostly did. But right at the end of the movie, they do make a change to the status quo, suggesting that Puppet Master 3 might take a different tack. Now, doubtless there's still going to be, puppet murders going on, but there's a suggestion that Puppet Master 3 is not going to be exactly the same kind of film as the first two, thereby, hopefully, obviously, making people who've watched the first two be interested in, they're going to do something different with the third film, I wonder what it is. And I think that was a smart business decision. So I think, and as I mentioned at the beginning, Puppet Master has undergone several kind of revisions to its franchise formula. At the end of the second film, they hint at the first of those. I think it's a clever business play to try and sustain the franchise by evolving it in different ways. So that's Puppet Master 1 and 2, a pair of schlocky, low-budget horror movies about puppets murdering people that are actually much better than they have any right to be. And that's about all I have to say about them. Next time, I'm going to be talking about a film from a similar era, but the other side of the world. 1991's Once Upon a Time in China, starring Jet Li. So hopefully that's something that will interest you and you'll come and check it out. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.